What is up, everybody? Uh, a slightly different looking version of the official visit. Yeah, your boy Trey Rowland is not here today. He's probably eating Doritos or watching Chris Jericho highlights. It's really hard to tell what Trey's doing. But Zach Blowstein is here. And guess what? It's my favorite day of the year. It's Zach's first top 10 most wanted recruits, the pre-spring edition. I look forward to this every single year because then I find out who the heck I need to watch, who I need to get to know. And Zach, we even invited Brendan to talk film.
Yeah, budget Trey Rowland over here.
Hey guys, how's it going, douchebags?
Oh, that's great. Zach, you wrote a top 10. You dropped 10 names, and then there was like 55 other guys that maybe because recruiting for this year has been kind of insane.
Yeah.
How hard was it for you to sit down and write a top 10 most wanted recruits?
Not as hard as trying to do a top 10 when they only had like 5 targets in November and December. But no, it was pretty difficult to pick 10 out of all the names that they're interested in and definitely have a shot with. That's why there were so many honorable mentions in that article. You can go find the full thing on Noles 7. Obviously, we're going to be breaking it down on the video today. But there's a lot of honorable mention guys that didn't quite make the list. They're right there of guys that, like FSU a bunch and that FSU is targeting heavily.
Yeah, little sample, little teaser right there for everybody. Don't want to give away too much. Get your butts over there. Get subbed. Brendan, there's a promo coming up, maybe?
Yeah, so starting on March 1st, which will be Wednesday, tomorrow, or depending on when you're watching this today, but March 1st, we are going to do a week-long promo at Noles 24/7. Where basically it's going to be 50% off an annual subscription. So it's a really good deal. If you've been waiting to jump aboard, this is a really good time to do it. The amount of content we're going to have and we've had, but what we will have coming up, especially with the VIP stuff, with recruiting and team scoop and whatnot, it's going to be crazy, especially this first week or so of March with both spring practice and spring recruiting kind of coinciding with each other and picking back up. So yeah, guys, if you're interested, please check us out at Noles 24/7. This is a really good time to do it at a pretty low risk, low cost chance or gamble, if you will.
Yeah, now's the time. Brendan's dropping tea all weekend.
Tea all the time.
Yeah, he's got Monday tea, Sunday tea, brunch tea.
Teabagging you guys.
He's Mr. T. He is the Mr. T. Loves it when a plan comes together. Yeah, so spring football is coming up. It's going to be starting next Monday. Tour of Duty coverage will happen on Thursday. There will be luncheon on Friday. Then our first big weekend of recruiting, right? This first weekend of March. Believe there's a couple big time guys that are going to be on campus.
Yep.
So get over to Noles 24/7, find out who those guys are. March 11th, Zach has like 75 names, not literally 75, but it feels like pretty much your entire recruiting board is going to be on campus March 11th. If you need to know who that is, get to Noles 24/7. Get subbed, 50% off. That's not bad. Save a couple bucks. Let's get into this top 10, though. That's what we're here for. That's what the hell the people want. Before I could do that, like the video. Do that for me. So the first, number 10 on the top 10 most wanted, wide receiver James Madison. I almost wanted to fight Zach when I read this, and it wasn't Chance Robinson because Chance Robinson is my top recruit for this class. But it is James Madison II, a wide receiver prospect out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, St. Thomas Aquinas.
Yep.
While I'm pulling his film up, Zach, if you could just give me a little background.
Yeah, well, so James Madison goes to the same school as your boy, Chance Robinson. They both share targets over there at a national powerhouse in St. Thomas Aquinas in Fort Lauderdale. I just, the reason why I put him there, it was a really close race between him and Chance Robinson. But I think FSU right now has a better shot with James Madison. I think Chance Robinson's just, a more high-profile recruit at this point. In the cycle, he's being recruited by pretty much every school in the SEC. James Madison is still a very high-valued recruit across the nation, but just maybe not as much as Chance Robinson. I think he's more of a developmental type, whereas Chance is a little bit more polished as a wideout right now. I'll let you break down the film because you're the expert, but just from my observations of seeing them both in person at the Battle Miami tournament, James has got a longer body, 6'3", 175 pounds, whereas Chance is a 6'1.5", 190-pound guy. So a little bit more filled out, but both very talented in their own right. And FSU would like to add both if possible.
Brendan, we've been through about 4 plays already. What are your initial thoughts?
Brendan is muted. He really is a budget tray.
Damn it!
Hour.
Damn it! I was gonna say very twitchy at a guy who is 6'3", as Zach mentioned. So I see a lot of first step explosive and even just like after catching the ball, a lot of juice to his game. And I think it's important to note that he's 6'3", Zach. I'm gonna assume this is one of the reasons also why you had him up a little higher than some other wide receivers. FSU has some fast, slightly undersized, or lack of prototypical size wide receivers already in the class, and Tawaski Abrams, and then
Camden
the legacy Camden Fryer. Thank you. So they want to expand their body type at the wide receiver position, and so this, James Madison is someone who kind of fits that bill as a bigger wide receiver type of threat.
Yeah, I think raw but toolsy is probably a good way of defining him. There's definitely some twitch and some movement ability. He's pretty loose hipped, but the range is nice. He's got some savviness to him too. He seems to understand where to be for the football. You kind of see him finding voids in some of these zone defenses, which is nice to see. Not often a characteristic of a 6'3" bigger body wide receiver. Want to see him high pointing the ball some. That'd be interesting. I like to see some of the body control when he's playing the football in the air. You don't get a lot of that, but yeah, I mean, Mike Norvell likes these box out wide receivers and these kind of back shoulder guys that you can put out there on the edges and win football games with. That is James Madison, the second out of St. Thomas Aquinas. I think this would be a good get for them. This would be a nice developmental target for them down the road. A player that they could build that. They don't label them X wide receivers and boundary wide receivers. They don't do a lot of that anymore. That's kind of going by the wayside in football. But a guy that you can play on the outside and find success with. Up next, I couldn't believe that there was a linebacker target on this list.
Had to include one.
For the first month, or for the month of January, it didn't seem like anybody actually believed that they were recruiting the linebacker position. Seems like maybe that board's working itself out here a little bit recently. But tell me about Edwin Spillman out of Tennessee.
Yeah, so linebacker board, like you said, isn't super deep at this point, but 4-star linebacker Edwin Spillman out of Lipscomb Academy over there in Nashville, Tennessee, is definitely a prospect that Florida State likes a good amount. He made it in for a visit. It was a quick visit in the month of January. I think a lot of people are considering him a heavy Tennessee lean, which makes sense, right? He plays his high school football in the Volunteer State, but I think FSU has a decent shot to get him back on campus in the spring. That's at least what he's told Chris and I in recent weeks about his spring visit plans, that he wants to get back over to Tallahassee. FSU and Randy Shannon are very selective in who they target at the linebacker position, which is what we've seen so far, right? Another name that I think some people may have expected to make the list was a guy like Jeremiah Marcelin out of South Florida. A guy that Randy Shannon does like, but I still think they're going through the eval process with him a little bit to make sure that he's 100% a take. But for what I know, I think Edwin Spillman is a guy they love and would absolutely take at this point, in the recruiting cycle. So I'll let you break down his game, but yeah, I think FSU really likes this kid.
Yeah, I'm going to go first this time. He's fluid. You see him with the ability to kind of flip his hips and get into coverage, then change direction, come back downhill. Looks explosive as a runner. Obviously has hitting ability. That play earlier, he absolutely didn't organize the dude. A guy that I think you could play inside and be happy with. You could line him up on the edge and do some pass rush stuff with. Here he's turning his hips and dropping, reading the quarterback. And then, as I said, denorganization time. Brendan, what do you think?
Seems a lot like I know it's selective with the Randy Shannon types, but kind of the build of what Randy Shannon seems to like. 6'1", between 6 foot 6'2", which is typical for a linebacker, but pretty bulky. Moves forward well. Some good like initial lateral movement as well. Not like super explosive. Like you saw him turn and drop into coverage, like a deeper concept there. It's not like an elite athlete, but someone who does move well in initial like phone booth type of movement spaces and skills. So yeah, I think a guy who it makes sense that he's on this list for what FSU likes at linebacker.
Yeah, if you told me I was watching like Tatum Bethune's high school footage, like frame wise, yeah, they look very similar. He likes those shorter, stockier, kind of compact linebackers, guys that are going to come forward and stop the run, which we've seen Florida State struggle with at times. So it makes sense. That's an area where they've got to get better. When contact's made, the running back's got to stop, or the ball carrier's got to stop. So I'm doing some spy stuff, which was interesting. I'd like to see him turn it. I'd like to see him open it up and really get running, see what kind of his high end speed is. But
let's see. They're gonna have him blitz. All right, I was gonna say they had him in space. I mean, he's a good athlete. Like I feel like we're maybe on. I want to make sure people listening and watching know, like this guy is
there we go.
Yeah, has some burst to him.
Yeah.
Just probably there's a reason why he's not like an elite recruit. What is he? Top 100, top 165. Yeah. So that's the difference between someone in the top 200 range at that position versus someone in the top 50 or so is maybe not an elite rangey type of guy, but certainly a lot to like about him.
I would say he's quicker. He's quicker than fast.
Yeah,
but he's got enough speed, but he doesn't have that next gear that the elite linebackers have. Some of that's probably just coming from stature. I mean, some of those guys are going to be 6'3", 6'4", a little bit more stride to him. Ooh. He does make contact. He's not afraid.
He's fun.
Yeah.
This is the kind of player that they, for the defense to take the next step, I think they got to start landing a guy like this that really solidifies that second level of the football.
A tone setter. Zach, you didn't have Marcelin even on your honorable mention. So is that as far away as you think he is right now in terms of like them kicking for him?
Based on what I was told like this past week, I think that he's still a guy, like I said, that they want to maybe eval a little bit, maybe go see him in May when they can get out on the road again and watch guys in spring practice at their high schools.
Gotcha.
That might be a valuable tool as they look to see whether they want to take him or not. I don't know what other schools are involved with him, but I know that FSU is going to like stay in contact. So we'll see. And they've got some other linebackers that'll make it to campus this month that could expand that board. And, it might not be as much of a question after this month as to whether, who they're going after at that position.
Yeah. Cool. Makes sense. The next player that we're going to talk about is a guy, number 8. He's been written about quite a bit already, was on campus in January. A big-time safety prospect out of Warner Robins, Georgia, Northside High School, Ricardo Jones. Tell us about him, Zach.
6'3", 200 pounds. Safety prospect. I think he's probably FSU's top, realistic safety target at this point in the cycle. That can change. Obviously, their defensive backboard is absolutely loaded and deep. But I think Ricardo Jones, I think they made a huge move with him in the month of January. He made a late visit to FSU in that month. It was kind of the last day before things went dead for the entire month of February on the recruiting trail. No prospects could obviously visit campus during February, and Ricardo wanted to get to FSU before things went dead. So I thought that was pretty significant. He says he has a really good relationship with Chris Thompson, who recruits his area in the state of Georgia. And obviously he's starting to build that relationship with Pat Surtain, who got hired, in the month of January, and he got to meet him on that late January visit to FSU. So I think FSU is prioritizing size at the defensive back position. That's one of the early takeaways from this, guys they've offered and guys they're targeting in this cycle. I think they've actually turned down, some possible commitments this month specifically from guys that are a little bit maybe undersized. So, take that for what you will. But I think FSU is really looking to add some length to their defensive backfield.
Yeah, those are the areas where this program's got to continue to get better, because that stuff does matter when you get to the level of football that they're wanting to get to. He looks pretty good. I mean, he's obviously rated pretty high, but you see the getting downhill speed right there. Earlier, there was a play. He kind of had a turn back to a speed turn, looked a little stiff, which is why he's a safety, not a corner. They're going to tend to be a little bit stiffer in that way.
But his range, as a center field safety, I like that he covers ground both. Retreating, moving forward, horizontally. I think there's a reason he is a safety, AB, because he's not maybe like the elite, super swivel hips. Even here, you can see a little tighter, but once he opens up, and combined with what's his height at 6'2" ish. It seems like the length is pretty.
He's listed 6'3", 200.
6'3". Okay, so he looks like what you want your safety to look like. He's impressive. And Zach, when you mentioned that there were some guys they turned down because maybe they didn't have the requisite length. We don't have to mention like names or anything, but it's not just or not just DB, right? Where they're looking at like a higher threshold of size. It's multiple position groups, correct?
I think FSU saw what they were going up against teams like UF, some of what they went against with Clemson, and they realized they need to get bigger at pretty much every position because they were getting beat up in a lot of those position battles, especially along the line. We'll talk about that in a little bit. A lot of the offensive linemen that they're offering now are 6'6", 6'7", long arm guys that they can develop and create into these monster offensive linemen, which they're going to need to be able to compete with teams in the SEC. So
get where they want to go.
Yeah, but like you're right, Brendan. I think they, not just at defensive back, but at pretty much every other position, they want to get longer, bigger, faster, and that's the goal of any program. But I think it's a huge emphasis in this 2024 recruiting cycle for FSU.
Real quick, I did have one. This is my first critique of Zach's list, which it's a fun job to do these top 10 lists, but it's difficult as well. I'm surprised that Jalewis Solomon was not. I know it was an honorable mention, but I thought pretty confidently he'd be in the top 10, and so to see another, spoiler, a couple DBs over him, I guess one of them makes sense, but I thought maybe he'd be a little higher than Ricardo Jones. I'm not sure how close he was for you, Zach.
Yeah, I mean,
he'd be up there.
He didn't visit FSU in January, to my knowledge. So that maybe, moves Ricardo Jones up. Ricardo visited in January and is probably going to make it back this spring. Jalewis does have a visit set to FSU in March. But yeah, I think he's a big priority. He'd probably been, right off the list. And the next DB I would have put on there is probably Jalewis.
So that's Ricardo Jones, probably more of a strong safety type. They tend to like that hybrid safety body type in the Shaheem Brown mold, who we'll see quite a bit of this year. I think that's definitely a player to know, a guy they obviously are very high on. I'm anxious to see his senior highlights if he loosens up any as he gets older and it goes through training and whatnot. The next one we're talking about, the lines of scrimmage, we're talking about SEC bodies and big boys. I'm hoping I'm going to say his name right. Kamarion Franklin, a defensive lineman out of Mississippi. I'm going to say it real quiet so everybody doesn't read.
Yeah, I don't love that, but continue.
I would immediately argue that where are the elite defensive linemen in the Southeast this year, though, especially Florida? Like, you're going to have to go fight these battles. Whether you want them or not, you're going to have to go fight them. And I know that people are going to get frustrated about that, but there's not a Kamarion Franklin in Florida this year.
Yeah,
it just is what it is. So if you want to win big dog battles, you got to go fight. We'll see what happens. Zach's got him number 7, so there must be some level of optimism that they feel like they can at least battle it out for this young man on top of him being such a high priority for them down the road. Zach, tell us about him.
Yeah, I mean, he's visited Florida State multiple times throughout his recruitment. They've been in on him for a long time. He'll be back at FSU, he tells Noles 247, on March 11th for that big recruiting weekend in Tallahassee, which I think is a big deal, right? Florida State's trying to make some headway in this recruitment. They're going against some of the top powers in the country, mostly in SEC country. Ole Miss, Alabama, Auburn, and many other schools are active with Kamarion Franklin. 6'4.5", 260 pounds. He's massive. Just an absolute monster. He also plays basketball. Just in his, I think his sophomore season, he had 13.5 TFLs and 11 sacks from playing both interior and on the outside. I think he plays mostly on the outside of the high school level, but he'll kick into the interior at the next level.
Yeah, he's a 3-tech all the way. But in Brendan's recent tee, I'm not going to give this all the way, but Brendan discusses a defensive lineman for Florida State who was a defensive tackle and a big boy who might be playing some defensive end this year, potentially. I don't think you could rule out Kamarion playing a little bit of edge at the next level, but his ceiling is probably 3-tech. I mean, just good God. First off, the name of his huddle page is I Hate Quarterbacks, so I love him already. I mean, he's long. You see the length. You just see the body type. He kind of looks like Fabo running around out there a little bit. Just big, long, freaky looking dude.
Strong, and then
Yeah.
Zach mentioned the basketball background. You see that in the movement skills, right? Like
Mhm.
where he's not this explosive, bursty first step, but once he gets moving, and it's not a slow first step, but like it's those second moves, it's the little lateral. You could tell someone that has to go jump up, get a lot of rebounds. That's going
Yeah.
to have to move laterally, defending people. Like that aspect of his game.
Hmm.
And there it is, right there, the lateral ability there, and then that like explosive movement to get off of a block. Like just really good combat skills. This has to be a sweet spot, though. Oh, God, a swim move. Yeah. This is understandable why he's a top 50 prospect nationally.
Yeah.
This is where FSU has to find a sweet spot, though, right? Like you should be able at this point in your development where you are as a program, and if you do what you think you're going to do this season, to pull kids out of Mississippi as long as they are okay going over Alabama to get
Right.
to you. And so you got to find someone who's in that sweet spot that Alabama maybe isn't prioritizing right now, that you can go ahead and beat out the Mississippi schools and say like Auburn, for someone like that. So that's kind of the range they're living in right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, you just put a lot of proof of concept out there for people. You brought back a Fabian Lovett. You brought back a Jared Verse. Clearly your NIL game. Shout out to Battles End, Ingram Smith, and all the fellows over there. Clearly, they put some proof of concept out there for folks. So if you're a high school prospect looking not for pay to play, but for when you get on campus and do your work to make some valuable money in the NIL market, Florida State's becoming a very attractive place. Obviously you're going to have to beat some of the big boys for this young man, but again, this might be the sweet spot that they can go do that. This dude's a player. This is the kind of guy they got to get. If they're gonna go next level, these are the type of defensive linemen that they've got to start attracting, landing. These are difference-making pass rushers and run stoppers.
Yeah, that's how FSU went from one of the things we don't talk about from that 2013 national championship team enough. Obviously, the offense was prolific, and even in the defense, you had LaMarcus Joyner was a badass, but that defensive line was all 5 stars, and that's what you need to compete at the highest level.
Yeah. I mean, they just change everything about your defense, especially if they can rush the passer and stop the run,
because you can move him around, which we talked. I'm excited watching him.
You find matchups and you win matchups. That's what the game is. It's about matchups, and this is a guy I think you could put on just about anybody and win a matchup with. So that's Kamarion Franklin. Let's pay attention, see if he shows up on March 11th. That's what's being reported right now. We'll see if he makes it in or not. A lot of times guys say they're going to come in, then maybe don't. We'll see. I'm sure he's a high priority for Odell Haggins. They've already got 2 committed, but I'm sure they want to load up as much as they can. Number 6 on the board, Jordan Lyle, a running back out of St. Thomas Aquinas. They've already got a running back committed in Cameron Davis, but it seems like they want to take 2. Zach, what's up with Jordan Lyle?
Yeah, so like you said, they want to take 2 running backs in this class. Cameron Davis is being recruited by a bunch of other schools. I'm sure if you guys have been on Noles 7, you've seen the reports we put up from Under Armour Atlanta this past week where he's, saying he might take some visits to other programs. So it's important that Florida State recruits other top-tier running backs, and Jordan Lyle is just that.
Yes, he is.
He absolutely blew up for St. Thomas this past season. I think he was actually sharing a backfield and still put up 1,000 yards, which is pretty impressive against the level of competition that St. Thomas is playing every week down in South Florida. But yeah, he was on campus in January. He likes FSU a good amount. I was actually on the phone with him yesterday just trying to see what his spring visit schedule is looking like. He's still working it out. He will get to Ohio State, I think, at the end of March. And then he said FSU's a spot he wants to get to along with some of the other in-state schools. So do you think he makes it back this spring? I know that FSU likes him a good amount. He's probably, I think I wrote this in the article, their top target aside from Canton Davis that's already committed at the running back position right now. There's some other names that I mentioned in the honorable mention section of the article, but Jordan Lyle is definitely the priority for FSU to add a second back in this class.
Makes a lot of sense. Brennan, what do you think?
It's a lot of fun. The contact balance there, and that's shown up a couple of times. But that play may have been the quintessential example of what contact balance is. So I like how he gets his shoulders square quickly upon contact. I like how choppy and quick the feet are. You see there, the feet always keep moving. These are just very basic things that you look for in a running back. And he's to steal a Chris Neism, he's checking those boxes. You see when he gets to open it up a little bit, he has breakaway speed. So the makings of a complete back, maybe not like a short area bruiser, but I mean, he's finishing runs at a high level. Like there's a lot here. You see upside, you see a pretty high floor as well. So I think we have him ranked as a high end 3-star right now. It to me looks like somebody who should probably be a solid 4-star. I will throw it real quick. Maybe Zach can add to this. We've seen a couple of St. Thomas Aquinas prospects on this list. This is why getting Conrad Hussey was such a big deal for FSUs. You want to get a good inroads at that program. It's a powerhouse. And correct me if I'm wrong, Zach, but isn't their head coach as involved with the recruiting process as most head coaches are nationally? That's not always the case, but is it Harriet that's there?
Roger Harriet's their head coach. He's done it for a long time down there. Just absolute, just great head coach in South Florida. And he's involved in a lot of these recruitments and, trying to, map out where these guys are going to go. He's not like influencing them to go to any school, but I know he does like FSU a lot. Has great relationships with multiple staffers at Florida State. Ryan Bartow is an off-field staffer that used to obviously, work down in that area. Then he has great relationships with multiple on-field staffers as well. So FSU is building some inroads with that school, which is absolutely huge because they're going to produce multiple Power 5 prospects every cycle. So it's just an important school to be recruiting well in South Florida specifically because it's just a powerhouse.
Makes a lot of sense. And Lyle is a personal favorite of mine. I think he's a really good ball player, and I think he would be a nice complement to a Cam Davis. As a 1-2 punch. Next up on the list, the priority along the offensive line, Jonathan Daniels, 4-star offensive lineman out of Pensacola, Florida, Pine Forest. Zach, some people are calling him a 5-star. 24/7's got him rated as a 4-star. He started as like a 3-star, but it's been coming on like I don't even know, like wildfire. He's blown up in the rankings.
Yeah.
Tell us about him.
Yeah, so I think FSU probably leads for Jonathan Daniels right now, and maybe that's just because he hasn't been to a ton of campuses yet. But FSU's gotten him on campus more than anyone by far. He has a great relationship with FSU OC/O-line coach Alex Atkins. He said he wants to visit LSU, UF, and Miami in the spring, but he does have a visit scheduled to Florida State for the March 11th weekend as well. Just an absolute huge target for such a long time for Florida State. And like you said, the industry updated, which means that the 24/7 Sports Composite rankings had an update yesterday, and he's now the 130th best prospect in the country and number 8 offensive tackle in the nation. So moving up a ton. He's still an 87 grade on 24/7 Sports. They're gonna update their rankings next month, I believe. So we should see him, maybe make a bump up from that ranking.
Yeah.
He's 6'4", 280 out of Pine Forest High School, like you said. Some other offers: Georgia, Auburn, Georgia Tech, Miami, Tennessee. There's a bunch of schools in on him, and I could see his recruitment only, continuing to grow as the spring months carry on.
Yeah, I mean, you immediately just see the explosiveness out of this young man. You see him on the defensive line, dominating the football, dominating the line of scrimmage. You see him on the offensive line on some of these double teams. There's a bit of project to him. It looks like some technique going to get cleaned up and whatnot, but he's a hell of a player. I would want to know what his wingspan is, whether he's a right tackle, left tackle at the next level, but. Either way, he's a tackle prospect, maybe, but could potentially play some guard. We'll see, but probably a tackle for Florida State. What's he doing here?
Zach, was he at Seminole Showtime?
Yeah, our showcase. Yeah, back in July of last year. Yeah, he was there and he worked out.
He was the one that looked like a 30-year-old man then, just like.
Yeah,
facial features. He looked like an adult.
There was another offensive lineman there that signed with LSU. That's Lance Hurd, who was also he had the same kind of thing going.
He looks like a grown man out there moving people. Brendan, you have any thoughts?
I think what stands out the most while watching him is the lower leg strength.
Mm-hmm.
I think that shows up a lot. He's got what looks like here like a pretty. It's where evaluating gets weird, like a thick build, lower base. Like it looks like he's pretty fulled out with butt and hips.
Good show,
like I know, but that is what you're looking for.
He's got
offensive lineman. You are looking for leg strength and how filled out you are there. Some of that is a thing, and he looks to be very strong lower body. I mean, but you also see this, like there's some athleticism, some hand-eye coordination stuff. And like Alex Atkins wants length with, arm length. He wants lower leg strength, and he wants a mean streak. And I think this is someone that, based on what we can see here, and this is the hardest position to evaluate, especially just off of huddle, not seeing them live. He seems to have all three of those traits. So you understand why he is someone who's just sending up rankings, not just on our network, but elsewhere as well.
So this play is an interesting one. He does not win the leverage battle initially, but then you see the power just take over and drive that guy out of there.
Lower body power for sure.
Yeah, his power's there, his athleticism's there. His hands get a little wild at times, but again, I mean, he's a junior in high school at this point in this film. There's a pretty high ceiling here, I think. And this is a young man that I think that they would love to get on campus in a battle that they would benefit from winning. It checks a lot of the boxes we talked about with Kamarion Franklin, getting bigger and more physical along the lines of scrimmage. Jonathan Daniels looks like he would do that for them. Next up, Mario Cristobal's home school, Dylan Stevenson, a defensive end out of Columbus High School down in Miami, Florida. This seems to be 1A at defensive end, or the one at defensive end. We've looked at his film before, but we'll take a quick look at it again. What do we know about Dylan?
Yeah, I mean, he's being pursued by a ton of schools. Like you said, I think FSU and Miami are probably the two most notable right now in his recruitment. FSU, he's been on campus a ton. He's made it up here several times over the past few years that FSU's been involved. Florida State was actually his first offer, believe it or not, back in March of 2021. And Miami offered later that day. So they didn't want to be behind, but FSU got in first, which I think is pretty big. And like I said, he's been on campus a ton. But Mario Cristobal did attend Miami Columbus High School, so obviously he has a lot of ties to that program. And Dylan Stevenson attends and plays high school football at. He's a true edge, I think. He's, a little lighter. I think he's like 235 pounds, but he's like 6'4", and he, he's ranked pretty high in the composite, 116 overall, number 11 edge in the country. He's an 89 grade on 24/7 Sports. FSU likes him a lot, and he's definitely probably their top realistic defensive end target in this cycle right now.
We're going to watch him, but Zach, do you worry about defensive end board?
Yeah, that and linebacker worry me a little bit, just because I want to see more names on there. If you look at pretty much every other position, it's not like FSU has a guy or two committed at edge. They have two interior defensive linemen committed right now in the class, and I think I'd like to see that board grow a little bit. Dylan Stevenson's obviously at the top. They've got some other guys that they're kind of in on, like Booker Pickett is another guy that I think I mentioned in the honorable mention section, and I think he likes FSU a lot, but he hasn't been on campus in a little bit. And you'd like to see him make it to campus this spring in order for you to have a shot. There's some other names that they're either evaluating or they've recently offered that'll make it to campus. They could maybe move up the board once FSU lays eyes on them in person when they make it to campus. But like you said, I think I want to see more high-end targets fill out that board, because that's an important position for Florida State to kind of fill up on it for the future. As we expect obviously Jared Verse to move on after this upcoming season, and then they'll probably have to replace maybe one or two others. So
Stevenson's he kind of reminds me of Hassan Reddick, who plays for the Philadelphia Eagles now, went to Temple University. One of these hybrid pass rushers, quick, fast, explosive, not necessarily going to win with power, going to win with their speed and their length. One of those guys I think that's got some developing still to do. Maybe in the Pat Payton mold, but not. I don't think he doesn't look quite as long as Pat Payton did coming out. Good player though. I mean, a guy that I think that they should value and would do well fitting in at the edge position. Brendan, you have any thoughts on him?
We've talked about him before. And I like
Yeah.
his upside, and this everyone has a type. Like that's my type of pass rusher. I want the 6'4", 6'5", a little bit lighter and kind of bendy and explosive. So yeah, I like his skill set quite a bit.
All right. So, I mean, if we're going to talk about true freak shows, this next one is that number 3, tight end Landon Thomas, was formerly a Florida State commit, backed off of that, committed to the Georgia Bulldogs right now. This dude is raw. I mean, there's no other way to define him. He is just nasty. Zach, how the hell did they get in this battle again?
Yeah, I mean, I really thought things were done between Landon Thomas and Florida State after he decommitted. That I think it was like over a year ago, and soon after made that commitment to Georgia. If we're looking at recent history, there's not much that would support FSU flipping anyone from Georgia, and let alone a tight end, which is one of the positions they recruit the best. If you look at their current roster, I mean, they have multiple NFL draft picks at tight end. They continue to recruit blue chip tight ends, the best in the country every cycle. And Landon Thomas is just that. But FSU got him on campus for a visit in January, and he has already scheduled a return trip to FSU for the March 11th weekend, which is going to be absolutely huge. He gets to be around Luke Roman-Hawk, FSU's quarterback commit that weekend, which I just reported on Noles 7 will make it in. And then a bunch of other top tier prospects. So I'm excited about him making it back. I think FSU, will continue to chip away on that one. I don't know if that's, one that they're expecting an immediate flip or anything like that. It's not going to be an easy flip. You're trying to flip a tight end from a school that continuously, especially in recent history, churns out NFL tight ends, and has obviously won 2 back-to-back championships at this level. So I'm not, predicting a flip as of right now, but he's a huge target for Florida State and would be absolutely massive get if they were able to flip him back from UGA.
Yeah, I mean, legitimately, I don't think there's anything I need to say. This kid's film is...
It's hilarious how good it is.
My God, like I'm watching him and I'm like, he makes Johnny Wilson look bad. And like, we love Johnny Wilson.
Right,
I think Johnny Wilson's a freak.
Yeah, Kev's going to jump into the stream and start yelling at you.
Yeah, well, does he make Pokey Wilson look bad or no?
Yeah, AB. Let's get the pecking order.
Easy, big fella.
The best thing I could say about Landon Thomas, you see him in person, and then you see the way he moves here, and it doesn't make sense. And
he doesn't look like a tight end at all. Like it legit looks like I'm watching... I don't know. It looks like I'm watching Calvin Johnson run right out there, which is high praise, but like this dude is fast. He's quick in short areas. Like his ability to turn after catching the ball and be at top speed right away is ridiculous.
Right. Yeah, the movement skills looks like somebody who's 40 pounds lighter and 4 or 5 inches shorter. I mean,
he looks like Brock Bowers. I mean, if we're being completely honest, I mean, he looks just like Brock Bowers, who's a Georgia football player right now, probably the best football player in America.
Which to Zach's point, like that's what you're battling is like the blueprint is there. It's like that's what you're going to have to go ahead and combat. So Jaheim Bell might need to be showcased this year to really kind of emphasize this point and see. He's from the state of Georgia, but he's much closer to Tallahassee than he is to Athens. So I guess we will see.
I don't want to turn it off.
Tight end board is so good, so much better than it's been any point recently. The Chris Thompson redemption tour has been fun.
Well, we're going to go from one freak show to another, and the next one up is JoJo Trader. He's number 2 on Zach's list, out of Chaminade Madonna Prep, home of Edwin Joseph, who Florida State just landed out of their last season's recruiting class. What's up with JoJo?
I think his recruitment is going to be all over the place, most likely. He's
a South Florida prospect who might have all over recruitment.
Very shocking, I know. But yeah, he's going to be at Florida State this weekend, actually, on Saturday. That's the plan. He'll be alongside some of his Chaminade Madonna teammates, including a guy, Jeremiah Smith, who's the #1 wide receiver in the country, committed to Ohio State right now. But yeah, that'll be pretty big time. I think Miami is probably the biggest threat for FSU right now in JoJo Trader's recruitment. They're definitely making some early headway in that one. That they got some crystal balls going their way after he had some interviews at the Battle Miami tournament in January. But I think FSU still has a really good shot with him based on what I'm hearing. I think he's going to take his recruitment a few more months at the very least. He could take it all the way into December. He's told me before, but I think he's going to make some visits. Ohio State's another school that's heavily in the mix for him. He's been up there before with his teammate Jeremiah Smith, and I could see him making it back this spring. But his first visit this spring that I know of will be to Florida State, and he'll be in Tallahassee on March 4th, which is this Saturday.
He's listed as 6'1.5", 170 pounds. A little bit different mold from some of the other guys that they've got, but he's got the burner speed. You saw him 2 plays ago. He played really well through the contact and was able to go run down the football. And there's the wheels again. This dude, he's listed as an athlete, right? No, wide receiver. Thought he was listed as an athlete.
Well, he was one. I think he's ranked as an athlete actually.
Okay.
But yeah, I think some schools are a little bit intrigued as to maybe could he play defense. I don't know if he does a ton of that. He's hilarious, dude. So I remember this specific moment. I think I forgot to mention this on the pod, but we were at Battle Miami and I was watching him. He caught a touchdown on a pass, but his release was hilarious. He literally spun around on his release, so just did a spin move coming off the line, and then ran a route and caught it like with one hand on the left sideline. It was insane, and just caught a touchdown, and then started dancing. So that's like true South Florida spirit right there. So
I was going to say, I mean, this looks like your South Florida stud wide receiver, like got all the personality, all the juice, but the game to back it up. I mean, yeah, this is a different kind of get. I mean, this is Pokey Wilson on steroids, like times 20.
Pokey Wilson's been mentioned more on a top 10 lit. Well, I saw Andrew Ivinson highlight there.
I've seen him on multiple highlights, actually.
What a hustler. What stands out to me here is what makes him a little different from other guys on FSU's board, and it's not the size necessarily, it's the vertical presence, whether that's speed or ability to go get the ball and jump up and win 50-50 ball. There's a lot of athleticism here, and that's just pretty evident that he is an explosive athlete.
Yeah, he never gives up any speed on any step. That's what's kind of what separates these guys. Like, he's at full speed all the time, no matter what kind of motion he's in. Like, even here, like, his first step's explosive, his second step's explosive, and all the while he's setting up this DB so that he can run a fade route. And he's doing it at top speed, but he's not out of control at the same time. Like, he's always under control. These are different kind of athletes. There, he's tapping the toes on the sideline, showing good spatial awareness. We've seen him high point the ball. We've seen body control. He's got it all. Yeah, he's a full package. Physical. Got the pizzazz too, which I like. So JoJo Trader would be a big time win for the Noles. Kind of one of those dudes that wide receiver room's been elevated, would take it to that next level. Yep. Last but not least, an extremely popular name on the lips of Florida State fans. Their top DB target, I would say, pretty easily. Charles Lester III. Yeah, you're battling some big boys here. He's coming back around again, though, it seems like. What's the story?
Yeah, Florida State. I think he's probably if he's not the top overall defensive back target, I think he's probably the top corner target for them. He has not scheduled a return visit to Tallahassee for the spring as of yesterday, but he did make it to FSU in January, which was pretty big. And after that visit, he was saying all the right things. So I think FSU probably leads at this point. I think Ohio State might be the biggest threat to Florida State in this recruitment right now. He's got a visit set there on April 1st, and then he's already got his OB locked in there over the summer, which I think is like June 16th, that weekend. But FSU he said he's going to visit FSU again this spring. He just didn't know what date yet. So getting him in on that March 11th weekend could be huge. I know there's been some scheduling conflicts with some guys that maybe are taking the SAT that weekend or maybe 7-on-7 tournaments. But I know that FSU just absolutely would love to add this guy in their class. and he has a lot of reciprocal interest in Florida State, and has for a while. FSU's been involved with him dating back to all the way in 2021 when they first offered him a scholarship. They were his third ever offer after Indiana and Michigan State, and they've gotten him on campus countless times since then. So just a huge target. He's been that guy for FSU in this class for a while. Seemed like they were kind of losing some traction maybe a year ago, or a year ago. But I think that they've regained a lot of that traction. Alabama was the other school that was kind of in the mix for him early. I still think they are, but maybe a little bit to a lesser extent. But I really like FSU's chances here right now, but I don't think he's anywhere close to making a decision.
And we know Alabama kind of works at their own time frame too. So
yeah, they might go and put the full court press on him at some point in his recruitment.
Right.
And I want to clarify something I said. When I say he's not close to a decision, that's basically what he's been saying in past interviews. He could make a decision at any time, from what I was told, but he continues to say he wants to wait out the process a little bit.
Makes sense. Big time player. Be nice to get him in the fold, but it makes a lot of sense. So he's got a lot of speed. We've seen that in some of his wide receiver highlights. The hand-eye coordination on that play earlier where he tipped the ball to himself and then kind of tipped it again and then called it was incredible. Looks a little slight, a little lean.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I know that multiple schools think he needs to put on a little bit of weight, but they love pretty much everything else about him. I watched him in person at Battle Miami, and he's as advertised. He's an elite level defensive back. Think he's a corner at the next level, and he does so much well. And I like that he goes both ways for his high school team. That that usually translates well to defensive backs when it comes to ball skills. So yeah, I like Charles Lester a lot. I think he's I've said it time and time again, a huge priority for Florida State, and they want to add him. As to when that would happen, I don't know, but he's just a massive target.
You should see the feet there. Feet are so important as a DB. You saw him there, though, a wide receiver with great feet. He's got some toughness to him running on the goal line down there. Speed, ball skills. He's the total package. Would like to bulk him up a little bit more, but you get him into a college weight program, that's going to come. Brendan, you got any thoughts on Charles?
You guys articulate it well. He is very much so a close to a complete package. Like you said, maybe not the biggest guy, but I think hits a lot of things well. Quick feet, very instinctive. You watch him how he plays the football there. It's impressive. So yeah, very natural, legitimate true corner. Probably someone who could play outside or inside. He's probably got enough to play outside, but you could probably move him around, which I think is a good thing. We're to see FSU do more as their caliber of recruit gets better too, and their player gets better, is to move some of these cornerbacks around to different spots on the field. So yeah, Charles Lester, I understand why he's number one on this list. He's a legitimate top 50 player nationally at a premium position, and FSU has positioned itself to be within striking distance here. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. The versatility is king in today's football game. He brings a lot of versatility to the backfield. Zach, anything else you want to add to your top 10 as we wrap this up?
Yeah, this can change a lot, obviously, with guys, maybe making decisions over the next couple of months, taking visits, not taking visits. We'll evaluate it probably after the month of March is over, or maybe even April, just so we can get done with the spring visit season. But we'll definitely, continue to update this list as the cycle rolls on. There'll definitely be an update before the summer, after the summer, before the season, and then, so on. So stay tuned with that. You can go read, the full list for a little bit more detail on a lot of these guys. And then obviously the honorable mentions are pretty noteworthy because you want to see, maybe who's next in the wings to maybe make this list down the line. So definitely fun article to put together. And I like doing this video breakdown for you guys because get to bring on the experts over here to break down every aspect of these guys' recruitments and then obviously their film.
Yeah. As Zach said, and we're going to put a bow on this, sign up for Noles 24/7 if you are not already. Get 24/7 Sports. Look at that fancy shirt. Where the hell do I get one of those? Whoa, yeah, baby.
Whoa, Homer.
That's what I'm talking about. Company man. Get on to Noles 24/7. But if you wait for the promo to start up, that's okay. 50% off. That's coming soon. You're missing out on a lot of tea. You're going to be missing out on a lot of interesting information here coming up anyway. But we're going to continue to be here on the Noles 24/7 YouTube channel. I'm also going to continue to be, and Brendan will join us too over there on the X's and Noles YouTube channel. Please be sure to subscribe if you are not. Please be sure to like the video because it is only going to help us get this kind of information out to more and more Seminole fans. Tell all your buddies, tell all your Nole fans, tell your family members, everything. Get them on here, get them subbed, get them subscribing. Let's go. Let's do this. That's another episode of The Official Visit wrapping up. Thank you, Zach. Thank you, Brendan. And thank you to me. See you guys later.